Hey guys, I'm here with Chris. Chris is a new customer. He's brought us by his GSX-R 750. It is one of the earlier versions that's fuel injected. I really like these bikes. His concern was his brake rotors were making a lot of noise, and he wanted me to switch him out to these nice stock, really mint Gixxer ones. But I brought to his attention this morning that he actually has a Brembo aftermarket disc on it, and they do have an insane amount of play. Any other disc, aftermarket or whatever, that made that kind of sound or noise or whatever it is, I would be advising him that is the way to go. Get those things on there. But what he didn't realize is that this specific disc, the Brembo disc, with these insanely large floater pins, which are serviceable and replaceable, they get clips on the back, are very valuable and really awesome for track days. Now the reason for that is that this part of the disc, being the stainless part, gets a lot hotter than the aluminum carrier that is carrying it. So under race temperatures and speed, this will tighten up and this gap will close. So the reason they do that is so that the dissimilar metals won't fight each other. Also, it's been upgraded. It's got the Brembo one-piece disc or calipers off of the 1000 model. So someone's done some really cool upgrades. Steel braided brake lines. It's got Pazzo levers. It's got some really awesome Sato Racing rear sets, fully adjustable for height in all these different positions. It's got some Woodcraft sliders. He got himself a really well set up motorcycle. It's running a set of Metzlers on it. It's got the M7, which was at the time was a spec tire for the Isle of Man. It's wearing the absolutely spectacular tri-oval Yoshimura, and we remember Papa Yosh. And going back to the 80s, Yoshimura and Suzuki were thick as thieves, and I think a Suzuki always looks best when it's wearing a Yoshimura pipe. So we're going to do a check over on his bike. We're going to service the chain. The oil looks great. He apparently has just had a valve service, so it's going to be a nice, easy day.
This guy knows what he's talking about. Good stuff.
Or you make it sound like I do.
Come check him out.
Yeah. Okay, next thing on the agenda is we're doing brakes and a rear tire on another Triumph, and I'm just going to talk about brake pad service. Real simple stuff. About the most important part of replacing the pads is making sure the pistons go back into the caliper squeaky clean. If you force dirt back in past the seals, you'll cause yourself a world of grief, because then the seals will cause the pistons to hang up, and the caliper won't deploy the pads equally or effectively. By their very nature, the pads give up material in the braking process. It ends up all over everything. It's also ionized when it does it, so it gets etched into stuff. That's why we want to keep bikes clean, because the longer the stuff stays on here, the more embedded it gets in everything. Okay. So I want to show you a before and after of this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pump with the pads in place the brakes, and you'll be able to see the shiny part of the pistons coming out, and it does it fairly slowly. And we're going to clean those all up, and then do the old, this is the before, and then we'll have the after. So this is the way we brush our teeth, our brake pistons. I use a little toothbrush and some kerosene here, and we start breaking down all this goop. You see a bunch of tartar buildup, and just like your dentist will tell you, don't ever put anything sharp in here, but you actually have to sometimes very gently knock all this stuff off. So after a little bit of cleaning, you use about a super non-abrasive, like wet and dry sandpaper. Sometimes you can get in there as well, or paper towel, or brake clean. I was able to use this just brake clean, and everything actually came off really well. So we're ready to force those pistons back into the caliper, check the fluid level, and reinstall new pads. Don't ever put anything in here to pry these things apart. I did use the old pads. It's a quick and dirty way to do it, and you can compromise those. In a previous video, we had a friend call us out for some brake work on his Vulcan, and I did a little talk about what brake pads look like new versus old. Maybe just, it didn't make a tech talk video, but if you look at the pad life right there, you can see the new ones are significantly bigger than the old ones. It was actually the offender on this one was this one here. As you see, it has the lines across the pad. Those are your wear index on them. That one had lines, this one did not. It can show that we're down to the last 1.5 millimeters of brake lining. We're going to go with some brand new EBC sintered Double H, which is a track day, or what most sport bikes come equipped with, new. Being the messy Marvin that I am, I used some high heat anti-seize compound on the pin for the threads, and I'm going to wipe off all that extra residue. Another feature of these calipers is it uses a safety clip on the back of the pin, so we install a brand new one, and I'm going to crimp that thing all the way over. Okay, we're going to dismount the tire here now. A lot of people talk about this and they refer to the bead or to de-bead the tire, which we just did. We just de-beaded the tire. If you look in here, you'll see a shelf. It's a pretty obvious little step actually. I'm just going to point at it with my finger, and it's got a little ridge there. Now the tire will actually come up this ridge and it'll pop into the shelf, and that's where it gets locked into the tire. The way it does that is the outer edge of the tire, or this part here, is actually got a steel cable that runs all the way around, which gives this part of the tire its actual shape and size and strength. Now in order to get the tire to come off the wheel, it would be impossible to simply just pull that cable up, because it is exactly the same dimension as the inside edge where you saw my finger. What we have to do is we actually have to use the well, which is this lower part of the tire. What we have to do is we have to push this side of the tire into the well, and then if you envision the tire going this way, loop it up over the shoe. So it's about that part where you didn't really pay attention to the mechanic pushing the tire down all the way around before he brings up the cable up over that side there. I always choose to give it a little bit of a shot with the lube. Makes the will go much better. We're going to replicate that on the other side by grabbing the tire down low, bring the tire completely into the well. As you can see, it's now in the well. That low spot right there. That enables us to bring that up over the shoe and do it again. Evidence this tire has been patched before. There it is. That looks like my handiwork even. Say goodbye. Well, welcome back to the truck. I'm new to job here and just noticed there's something maybe you guys would be interested in. The ground lead on a starter motor, the threads were damaged on the bolt, so it's gonna be real simple. We're gonna do a helicoil on it. Basically, I've got as required for a 6x1, it's a 1/4 inch drill bit. I've already re-tapped the hole there, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna get the kit out, and it's helicoil product, and it has the little stainless inserts. And we're going to do an insert on this so that I can actually do it up properly. I think there might be more than one on this bike that's been over tightened. Half turn in, half turn out, half turn in, half turn out. And we just slowly half turn in, half turn out, work our way into the aluminum. But carefully, you can see all the metal coming out. So we're gonna pull it out, blow it clean, inspect it. It's looking pretty good. Tap down that little piece of extruded wire there. Our tech tip of the day here is there are different size wrenches for a reason. This is a really great visual. If you're working on 6x1, 5x4 small bolts, you should use a 1/4 inch ratchet, no more. Use this ratchet on that bolt and you'll shear it off or take out the threads. Again, medium size, 8x1, maybe 12. You can go 3/8 wrench. Your big axle shafts and such, like really big bolts, 1/2 inch breaker bar. Never use this bolt or wrench on that size bolt. It's guaranteed you're gonna rip it off. They're all designed to give you a certain amount of torque and leverage. Also, use a smaller wrench than you think, then you're less likely to strip it. And you have to get to know how much force you can yield with each finger of your hand. Don't use your whole hand like this every time you use the wrench. Start practicing, a couple fingers at a time. Get a good tactile feel for how much force you put on a bolt. There's your tech tip. Use the appropriate wrench for the appropriate bolt. Nice day for new tires.
Don't see much.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Can't really see it. Looks better when it's tech. Watch that. That's okay. You go.
Well, we're just out doing a service call, and people have the coolest things hiding in their basements.
Yeah. Like I said, I was timing it, but I just couldn't get it.
Yeah.
I'm going to investigate the electronic ignition.
It could be a really worthwhile. It'll make you enjoy it that much more, and probably use it that much more.
It was always hard to start. If I didn't get it the first kick, even when it was new, you'd be kicking it a few times. So beautiful little bike though. Goes 100 miles per hour. Weighs 213 pounds.
That's cool. And he's owned it since it was 3 months old.
Yeah. And if I wasn't so old, I'd be doing more wheelies on it, but maybe I'll try one more.
One more?
I get it running again.
Very cool, folks.